Sage Wanderer here, and welcome to my van down by the river. Well, I would like to announce a new series that's starting right now. You're here at the very beginning of it, of a new series entitled Unmasking the Dark Side. That's right, Unmasking the Dark Side. Welcome to episode 1. Now, if you know this channel and you know me, then you might have seen the video titled The Sage Prophecies, where one of the prophetic words that keeps getting spoken over me is that I will reach millions of people and I will be like a light shining on a mountain top and shining on the world and shining on darkness and casting light into the darkness and driving the darkness back. And these are all things from these repeated words that have been spoken over me. Go back and look at that video if you'd like to get more information on that. But really, I think to me, I'm identifying my mountaintop as YouTube and the truth that I spread as the light. And so today I'm going to begin this series in casting light and revealing and unmasking the dark side. So everybody's got their own bad guy. And if you watch this channel, you know, I talk a lot about the Illuminati. And what I have by way of information on the Illuminati is kind of slim. I mean, we can kind of see how they're tentacles wrap out into the world and how that they manipulate and move things. But when you try to really research the history on the Illuminati, you kind of end up with a dead end. You see them rise up in 1776. That's a very interesting number that will be reoccurring as we go down through this study. But in 1776, they come out of Freemasonry, form the Illuminati, and then by 1784, it's gone without a trace. Why does it keep coming up again and again? Well, for me, the Illuminati has been verified by a woman that I met who would later be known as Svali, who told me the end game and talked to me about what she called the Illuminati, its history in Bavaria, its underground operations, and its plan for the total domination of planet Earth. So that's what I've got that reminds me of the Illuminati. But everything in between, you know, any kind of proof or evidence, it gets harder and harder to really put your finger on that group. So, but to me, because of Shvali more than anything else, and what I know about the music business and the terms that they use in that conspiracy, about selling your soul to the devil or to the Illuminati, and what I know about the Black Illuminati that is surfacing, you know, those are the things that I know about the Illuminati, but the historical evidence is really slim. So a lot of people that come on the channel, they're like, wait, Sage, it's not the Illuminati, it's the Zionist. It's the Khazarian Zionist mafia, okay? And others will say, no, Sage, it's not. It's the papacy. It's the Roman Catholic Church. They're the bad guy. Other people will say, Sage, it's Islam. Islam's the problem. After exhaustive study, after working an entire lifetime to unveil to myself and to unmask the dark side and to point a finger and identify where the evil is coming from, I have to say it's all of those organizations, that there is evil in all of those organizations, from Freemasonry to the papacy, from the Zionist Khazarian mafia, the banking mafia, they want to call them. You know, it's all related. They're all intertwined. And I hope in this series to unravel them for you and show you what each group has contributed to the advancement of the dark side, what their conjoined plans are, where their plans intersect, and how they are going to be played out before our very eyes in these modern times that we live in now, these interesting times. So bear with me as we take a lengthy look at some of the elements that we have just laid out for you. That who might be the bad guy? Who's the bad guy? I guess we're playing a big tea time game of who the bad guy. So, the first one I wanted to tackle is the one that I never talk about on this channel, and that's Zionism. And one of the reasons I don't talk about Zionism is because I don't want to be construed as an anti-Semite or someone who's literally Hitler or any kind of Nazi. So I'm going to lay this Zionist theory out there for you based mostly, well, in as much as I can, entirely on facts, on what we know, what history can tell us. And I'm going to try to connect the dots here so that you can see what's going on. I don't mean to condemn Judaism as a whole because, well, to quote Joe Biden, you don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist. And there's a whole group of Christian Zionists out there that, especially in the South, where if you question any kind of support for Israel, no matter how violent and unfair and authoritative they may seem, that whatever bad thing Israel's doing, if you even question it down in the South in some southern circles of Christianity, well, bless your heart, you're literally not literally Hitler, you're literally a Nazi, get out of my face. Yeah, it's just they're really strong in support of Israel and the nation of Israel, and the reason for that is the same reason why some Jews are Zionists is the same reason why some Christians are Zionists. And it's because to certain Jews, religiously, as a part of their faith, their doctrine, as it were, they believe that for a Messiah to come, which is what they're looking for, they're still looking for their Messiah. For their Messiah to come, the nation of Israel has to be restored and the temple rebuilt. Well, Christians believe that that's a prerequisite for the second coming of Christ, that Christ cannot return for his second coming until the temple is rebuilt. So it's a pretty safe argument to say that the manipulation of the modern geopolitical storm that we're facing now and have been struggling with all of my lifetime can all be traced back to the decision of sending survivors of the Holocaust and gathering Jews from around the world to Palestine to take back Israel, take back specifically Jerusalem, for a homeland for the Israeli people, the Jewish people. But the interesting thing is that not all Jews can trace their heritage genetically back to that part of the world. That in fact, most of the people that you think are Jewish are not really genetically Jewish at all. Don't. Because ultimately Judaism is a religion, not a race. And just like there are all colors of Christians, there are all colors and all sorts and all genetic backgrounds of Jews. And there you can break them down into some basic groups. There's a lot of splinter groups of different kinds of Jews. But let's talk about some of the major groups. We'll start from the smallest to the biggest ones. So, who are the genetic Jews? Now, we're not talking about religion. These people are genuine Jews because they've adopted the religion, sometimes hundreds of years ago. But who can literally trace their lineage back to A, the Holy Land, and B, all the way back to Jacob or Israel? Who are the children of Israel genetically? And we're talking about genetics here, we're talking about genealogy, not religion. So all the people that claim to be Jews, you're Jews. You're genuine Jews by your religious proclamation and your religious faith and your heritage. Now, having said that, let's talk about the different kinds of Jews genetically. And also there's variations in their culture, in their histories, in the way that they interpret Judaism. In fact, there's a Ashkenazi Jew, a comedian, I think his name is Modi, and he likes to do a routine on how his Sephardic Jewish friends take forever when they're praying. When they're praying over their food and they're blessing things, it's just like it's a 4-hour service where, Ashkenazi Jews will just say a quick blessing and stuff the food in their mouth. So there's differences. They're not all the same, and they come from different parts of the world and all have a different history. But let's hit the highlights, because identifying a certain subgroup of Jews is going to give us the genesis of Zionism and what is behind the Zionistic conspiracy. Anyway, so let's look at some of those groups. The Mizra Jews. Mizra Jews are the Middle Eastern Jews. They're the Palestinian Jews. They're the Jews that lived there and never left. Now, although absolutely they can trace their heritage all the way back to antiquity, the problem is they've been marrying in the culture of the Middle East until that entire region is so genetically similar that it's like almost everybody's related. The Mizra Jews are very much related to the Palestinians, related to Arabs, related to the people of that region. They're all genetically kind of similar, and that may or may not be, but probably is the genetic makeup of who Jesus was. He was probably that Arabic-looking kind of light brown man, because that's who are there now, and that's who the Mizra Jews are. And interesting enough that all the Jews that came after the Holocaust to Israel, they kind of looked at the Mizra Jews' food and their music and their passions and their lifestyle as a archetype way of being, like that's the true Jewish way to be. So even the Jews kind of look at Mizra Jews as maybe, their quintessential Jewishness, as it were. You've got Ethiopian Jews. So there are black Jews. Now, they're not the Hebrew Israelite Jews of fake Jews of North America, although some of those people may have Ethiopian Jewish lineages that they could possibly trace. What I'm talking about are African-speaking dialect black Africans who have been Jewish by tradition and culture for centuries. There are Ethiopian Jews, and many of those have moved in small groups to Israel to stake their place in the Holy Land. And but they are either not at all related to the children of Israel genetically, and are only Jews by culture, or they have some slim connection through Solomon and Sheba all those centuries ago. And then there's the Sephardic Jews, and they may be the most genetically traceable Jews because of how long they have been in the Iberian Peninsula, the area of southern Europe now known as Spain and Portugal. That the Sephardic Jews, until they were exiled from that country in 711, they may have gone all the way back to the time of Solomon. They may have been there as a colony on the Iberian Peninsula. There's burial engravings and some shaky kind of evidence to prove that there may have been a colony there at the time of Solomon, a taxable colony where one of Solomon's men was sent there to collect taxes on behalf of the homeland in Israel. And so the Sephardic Jews have a totally different culture. They endured the Spanish Inquisition. They were targeted more than probably any other single group in the Spanish Inquisition. And some people say that the Holocaust that the Ashkenazi Jews endured under Hitler, there was nothing new there. It really wasn't even as bad as what they endured at the hands of the newly converted Christian churches of Spain during the Spanish Inquisition. That, of course, just look up that, and if you want to know the truth behind that mess. So the Sephardic Jews are traceable Jews that can go clear back to antiquity. And then that leaves us to the Ashkenazi Jews. Ashkenazi Jews are the Jews of Europe. They're the white ones. They're the ones that come from Poland and Germany and, up into Russia, the Russian Jews. And those people are all genetically connected. That region of European Jews all share similar ancestors. And they can trace their lineage back to the Khazarian Empire. So the Khazarian Empire was a pagan empire that was established on the steppes. It's an area near the Byzantine empire, and it is related to Turkey. In fact, the Khazarians, the Khazars, are in fact Turkish nomads who settled in that region and, became a nation. And the fact that the Khazarian Empire and its history, it's some like 400, 500 year history as an empire, and it was huge. It covered everywhere from Kiev to Germany. That, from Russia to Germany, that whole region known as the Balkans and the whole section in there, all of that was all under Khazarian control for centuries. But have you ever heard of the Khazarian Empire? Of course you haven't, because they didn't teach it in school. It's being suppressed. The information about them is being suppressed because it's clear evidence that the Ashkenazi Jews, most of which are American Jews, or almost all Ashkenazi Jews, I hope I'm saying that right, Ashkenazi Jews, most of the ruling class and the people in charge in Israel are Ashkenazi Jews, and they have no historic genetic connection whatsoever to the Holy Land. They are not genetically the people of God. But see, I don't know that I don't buy into that whole people of God designation anyway. I'm not a Christian Zionist. A bunch of my viewers probably are. Philip Jones, I bet you are a Christian Zionist. People like John Hagee, they're more Jewish in thinking and more Israel-based in thinking than they are American Christians. Him and his followers. You know what I mean if you're a Christian. There's this group that's just, they're just so pro-Jew, so pro-Israel, to be almost a militant non-American in some situations. They choose them over us. So at any rate, how did these Khazarian pagans who worshipped a snake, that's another interesting thing, they worship a snake god. The image of the snake eating its own tail is from the Khazarian religion and that form of paganism. And what happened is they underwent a religious conversion as a nation, a mandatory conversion at the point of the sword, convert or die kind of conversion by one of their own kings. King Bulan Khagan. Now, Khagan is the title. Bulan was the name of the king. In 780 AD. That almost sounds like I'm redundant. 780 AD. 780 years after Christ. This Khazarian Khagan king converted the whole nation to Judaism. And I think he did it for political and for military reasons, although there is a mythology associated with him that says that he was visited by angels. And so these angels visited him and told him to seek out the true faith, the true religion. And so at the time, the conversion, he's giving up paganism for some religion and he's searching. So the Byzantine Empire sends a Christian cardinal or bishop to try to convert him, and the Turks send a Muslim cleric to try to convert him, and he engages with the three men engage in a in a religious discussion, and they weigh out the merits, why one is better than the other. And he already has a plan in mind to not join either side, but to become neutral by becoming Jewish, and to fool them both. But he tricks the one side into saying that it's better that he was a Jew than to be a Christian, and for the Christians to say it's better for him to be a Jew than it is for him to be a Muslim, and in so being tricks them both to basically tell him he should become a Jew. So he converts his entire nation to Judaism, and he hunts down all of the wizards and all of the sorcerers and all of the idol worshippers and pagans in his kingdom. He hunts them down, and he either runs them out and banishes them or kills them. So there's this purge of anything to do with the native pagan religion that always had been a part of that nomadic tribe's world, and they convert to Judaism. Now, he did it for real survival reasons. There was a war between the Christians and the Muslims, and he was caught in the middle, and he didn't want to fight either one of them, and this was his only way out. Although the Muslims ended up invading anyway, and they ended up being overran, and their empire being destroyed by Islamic invaders, and the people scattered to the four corners of the earth, many of them ending up in an area between Poland and Germany. And North Germany had a whole lot of these people in that region that settled there after the smoke cleared, after the end of the Khazarian Empire, the empire you probably never heard about until this video. So, we've talked about how this group now, who worshipped a snake, has converted to Judaism. Do you think they all converted? Do you think everybody who was a Khazar immediately became an Ashkenazi Jew and converted to Judaism? Or do you think some of them pretended? Do you think many of them decided to take the pathway of least resistance and their religion went underground? I believe so, and this is the root religion behind some of the darker sides of Zionism, and it explains the religious connection between the Illuminati and Zionism, which we will study in our next video, the connection between Zionism and the Rothschild family. Now let's talk briefly before I end this video. I will set up the next video by talking about the Rothschild family. A lot of people think it's Roth's child, like Roth had a child. But actually, Rothschild is two words that mean something. And it doesn't mean a guy named Roth had a kid. It means, Roth means red. And it's not Roth's child. It's Rothschild. Rothschild. Child is shield. Red is Roth. Roth, shield. Red shield. Rothschild, red shield. Okay? The red shield was the banner of the Khazarian Empire. The red shield is what was the image and the icon of the Khazarians. Anybody who was a Khazarian often were referred to as red shields. So the Rothschild family is not an actual name. The name is Amschel. And Meyer Amschel is the founder of the Rothschild family. He adopted the name Rothschild or Red Shield and made it his logo or banner for his business. Now, although he was a son of a textile factory owner, he became a goldsmith. Now, goldsmiths were people that made jewelry, but mainly they were gold brokers, and they would make coins, and they would make gold bars, and they made currency, as it were. And so people would trade goods for currency, and it started this whole process that kind of gave way to what would later become the banking industry. Now, banking was first pioneered by the Knights Templars, the founders, I believe, the root of Freemasonry and Illuminati and the Mystery Babylon religion. And so maybe it's now where Meyer Amschel, who would call himself the Red Shield, and his family, first come into contact with the Illuminati. And maybe this is where the Illuminati is linked, is through banking, because it was the Knights Templars who took money and held it for people who were traveling to the Holy Land, so the people traveling to the Holy Land would not be beset by bandits and robbed. So you would deposit money with the Knights Templars in Europe, travel with no money so you're not a target, and then receive money while you were in the Holy Land, and then any you didn't receive or didn't spend in the Holy Land when you got home would be refunded to you. So maybe this ideology is where Mayer Rothschild, the first Rothschild, comes up with this combination of things to create this banking cabal that many people call the Khazarian Mafia. So, follow the money. Always follow the money. Every time. So in the next video, we will talk about the connection between the Illuminati, Freemasonry, the Rothschilds, the Knights Templars, and banking, and how this is all connected religiously through this religion of the snake, the serpent religion, and how it's all mixed up with Catholicism as well through the Knights Templars, and how that all of these entities and groups and organizations have been penetrated by a serpent cult. And we will cover that in the rest of this series. Thanks for your patience. I'm sorry for being long-winded, and we'll see you on the next episode of Unmasking the Dark Side with Sage Wanderer.